The Soundcore Motion Plus versus the Dockin D Fine Mark II. Big difference in size, big difference in price. Why am I doing this? Well, because this is a speaker I like a lot, the Dockin D Fine Mark II, as opposed to the previous version, because it does seem quite different. They do claim different drivers, but I haven't heard in person the Mark I. I can't tell you if there's a huge difference. The Soundcore Motion Plus is a huge favourite right now. It's a favourite of mine. It's probably the best bang for buck speaker you can get. At the point of this video, people are asking me to compare the two. Why would you get one over the other? I wouldn't personally want to get one over the other. Let me make this clear. I like both of these speakers, but they offer very different things, very different sound signatures, and I'll hopefully get that over to you in the course of this video. Just quickly go over the other differences. The differences is in spec. Now, I would have said, oh, this is well cheaper than the Dockin Mark II because this is about £180. I would have said this is about £80, but I have noticed the price of this is creeping up. Maybe we're overhyping it, and Anker is saying, oh, they like our speaker, we're going to charge a bit more. They come out with the red and the blue, and I can see on Amazon £110 if you want a coloured version. £100 for this, whereas we were seeing £60 offers when this speaker first came out, which is what made it incredible value for money. Now it's getting a bit, say, if you've got a coloured version, 110, 180, not quite the difference. Yes, there is a big difference in size, but it seems to hit more than its weight. So, did have down retail price £80, but it has seemed to have crept up, but you do get offers sporadically, £180. This, of course, is the new speaker. This has just come out this year. Came out 2019. In terms of battery size, and this is what you've got to watch. Much bigger battery in the Dockin. Smaller battery in the Soundcore Motion Plus. So of course, this is going to not last as long as that one. Well, this is what you've got to watch. What's the voltage? Because I say there's a 9,600 milliamp hour battery, or pair of batteries, adding up to 9,600 milliamp hours in the Dockin. What you need to know is the voltage, because at 7.4 volts, which this speaker is, it means in equivalency terms, because the batteries are now in series, it's basically at 3.7 volts equivalents, 4,800 milliamp hours, compared to a 3.7 volt battery running at 3.7 volts, 6,700 milliamp hours. So, more power, but less capacity, the way the batteries have been arranged compared to batteries in the Soundcore Motion Plus. Now, they do both have exotic codecs, aptX, both are Bluetooth 5. They are both TWS, true wireless stereo pairing, so you can pair two of these and get proper left-right, not just party up, double up mode. That's confused me in the past with some speakers, thinking, oh, they pair up. Must be stereo. No, it's got to be true wireless stereo pairing. USB-C on the Motion Plus. It's barrel charging on the Dockin, but that's because it's a 15 volt charger, so more powerful charger. So technically it could be USB-C, but no, it's barrel charging. Half the weight, the Soundcore Motion Plus, 1050 grams compared to 2260 grams. So that's hefty in the hand. That's a reasonable weight. Smaller, less weight. In terms of what they say is true power and not the peak power, 50 watts maximum, 30 watt maximum. So expecting this to go considerably louder than the Soundcore Motion Plus. The Dockin is splash proof, but don't drop it in the water. It's not IPX7. But you can drop this into water, and as long as it's not more than 1.5 meters in deep and it's not in there for more than 30 minutes, your Soundcore Motion Plus should be okay. They do both have separate tweeters, pair of passive radiators, and they both have a pair of woofers. But passive radiators front and back, passive radiators both on the back and considerably larger on the Dockin D Fine. I do test the latency. And if I work out the average, 130 milliseconds doing the YouTube and running MX Player locally, 100 milliseconds average on the Dockin D Fine. However, if it's YouTube you're interested in, On my test on my phone, they both did 80 milliseconds, which is basically, you're not going to notice, and that's as good as any of my Bluetooth speakers. Now, in terms of battery life, I was a bit disappointed and shocked to find in my testing running at maximum volume. 2 hours 14 minutes I got from the Dockin. Compare that to 6 hours 45 minutes on the Soundcore Motion Plus. That is a huge difference. That's a bigger difference than I was expecting, given how loud this goes and given battery size. So I'm not sure what the issue is there, but that's 2 hours at maximum, and you could well be running this at maximum. Isn't a huge amount. I was surprised by that. But this has really good battery life, goes pretty loud, and 6 hours 45 minutes at a decent volume. Well, running it at max volume. Now, I'm gonna get on. I'm not gonna do a 33% volume test, which I normally do for a test of low level listening. Why? Because I don't think this is a speaker for you if you're gonna low level listen. There's issues, not least obviously it's a very thick, warm sound, which is not that suited to very low listening. It's going to sound a bit muddy, but it has a very weird volume scale, whereas not much volume, not much volume, oh, now you get a lot of volume, and then not much again. So you get a certain range of volume, and below and above that, there's not a lot happening. So I'm doing this test at my 66% volume. I say 66% volume, but 66% volume in real terms is 76% on the Dockin. So this test is at 66%, and it's at 76%. I'm also going to say, starting from this video, my normalizing, and when I say loudness equivalence, and indeed when I do my maximum volume tests, I'm no longer doing average RMS dB. I am now moving over to what the world has moved over to, loudness unit full scale. That is a scale that's measured in perceived volume. So it measures less at the base, more at the high end, and normal in the middle. So when you normalize them properly, it's a proper perceived volume test rather than actual power within the track itself. So 66% equals 76% LUFS, which is basically K weighting, a straight test. Balance mode, which is default mode on the Dockin. My custom mode, which is the only mode I personally listen to, the Soundcore Motion Plus, and it seems most people listen to the Motion Plus. The default modes, not really worth my time, to be honest, trying to compare them. It doesn't come alive till, in my opinion, I use my custom modes, or indeed your own custom settings. But whatever you do, you really want to try using this in a custom mode. My comparison.
Got enough of every melody, they all sound the same. Yeah. For my broken heart, no remedy, but maybe if you stay, we can get away with it. 'Cause you make me love my imperfections, answer all my questions, just to show me what's on the other side of inhibition. Apologies, my baby. I do you do 'cause I'm feeling so good. Oh, my darkest memories, now let me fall back. But you'll be there, ready to rescue me if I go out of track. You can get away with it. 'Cause you make me love my imperfections, answer all my questions, just to show me what's on the other side of inhibition. No apologies, my baby. I do you do 'cause I'm feeling so good. what's on the other side of inhibition. Ooh, I do you do 'cause I'm feeling so cool.
Dockin 76% volume, balance mode. Motion Plus 66% custom mode. At these volumes, they are about the same perceived loudness. The big difference is fuller, deeper bass. Look at that 60 Hz region on the Dockin 76% volume there. Motion Plus 66% volume. Lower bass is dropping away, but upper bass a bit stronger than the Dockin. So this upper bass on the Motion Plus does hide some of that difference in the lower bass. Where the Dockin excels, the Motion Plus sounds a little bit thinner, but more sparkly, more detailed in the high end. Dockin does have a bit of a dip, 1 kHz to 3 kHz, followed by a little bit of a peak, which isn't a very natural sound. The Motion Plus is much more balanced with these settings, and then the Dockin has that signature dip around 8-9 kHz. So the big difference is Motion Plus more accurate, a bit thinner, more sparkly. The Dockin much better quality in the lower mids and in the lower bass. So you may not be hearing all the differences in that clip that I hear in person. A, because you hear it on different drivers, and of course you've got to hear the actual drivers themselves if you really want to hear what the speaker is. I can give you relative differences, but that's mostly going to come down to the differences in the actual frequency responses and how it's boosting any particular part of that range themselves. In that sense, because it's quite heavy in the upper bass on the Motion Plus, it kind of hides the advantage that the Dockin has in the lower bass, unless you're listening on a tasty equipment, decent hi-fi, something that's really going to bring out that 60, 50, 40 Hertz range that you, in a way that you can hear. Otherwise, you're probably really going to wonder what the difference is between the speakers. Other than in person, I can say that I like them both. I'm not saying one over the other. And it's a testament to the Motion Plus at, you know, sometimes half the price and half the weight and a lot smaller, that it stands up to the Dockin in the sense that there's something going for it, that you still want both. This is a thinner sound. This is a thicker sound, a sound that I like. The Motion Plus is more accurate. It's more true to the original recording. Doesn't say it's true to what it should sound like. This is true to what the sound engineer intended. So if that's your aim, certainly the Motion Plus is the one to go for. But this is a thicker sound. This is a much warmer sound. It has a more satisfying bass. It has a much deeper bass. But the thing to me about the Dockin, you know, it has a lot of issues, I'm not denying. But the one thing it has going for it, that I'm personally not getting from any other speaker, but I've personally got at the moment, or can remember getting in the recent past, those lower mids, it's a real quality and it's very detailed. So thin sound, but accurate, and has a sparkly high end, almost to the point of being a little bit too shrill, a little bit too sharp, you may find, depending on your taste, but it certainly is very detailed in the high end. You're not going to get that on the Dockin, but you're going to get the detail in the lower mids you're not going to get on the Motion Plus. It's a very quality lower mids, and it does have very good bass weight and extension without becoming a boombox. Talking about balance mode, of course, does have bass mode. Both of these speakers have bass mode. So, they're both going to be even more bass heavy. So we're going to go to the default mode, which is bass up on the Soundcore Motion. On the Motion Plus, wow, it's going to get even louder in the bass, isn't it? Because that's the bass up mode. Against bass mode on the Dockin, let's have a listen. Yeah, I don't know why they call it the bass up mode. It can certainly go a lot bass heavy more. It can certainly go a lot heavier in the bass. But when I get to my maximum tests, we may see why they have dialed their bass up mode down so much. It's really a slopey effect, so it's accentuating the bass because it's reducing elsewhere. That's really what's happening in the bass mode. Whereas with the Dockin, the bass mode is still a proper bass mode. You're getting good bass extension, but you are losing a bit more from the mids and the highs, but it still sounds a good listen and it still sounds balanced. It's not that particularly accurate, but it does sound balanced. So proper bass mode, pretend bass mode on the Motion Plus. So really, if you want to compare what they both can do when pushed in the bass, we're going to have to do bass mode against custom mode. So yeah, Soundcore Motion Plus can hold its own in a lot of areas and beat it in a lot of areas, but what it can't do is provide you with full deep bass, which the Dockin can do. So that's why I say it's not one or the other, but they both offer something different. Either they're going to suit different genres in a different way, or you're just going to want a different kind of listen. That's what I like to do. I still listen to almost all my speakers, Sony XB32, maybe not you, but most of them still get a listen because I just like listening in a different way. I'm not one of those who say flat frequency response, that's all I want. I want to hear what the sound engineer wanted me to hear, and nothing else matters. I just like listening to my music, and I don't get too hung up on flat frequency response. However, that is a good starting point. I think it's worth remembering what flat frequency response actually means. It means you're getting what the engineer wanted you to get. And what did the engineer want you to get? Got to remember, he's trying to second guess what you're listening on, and what room you're listening in, and at what volume level. So it's not really about, oh, I'm getting the original performance. No, it's what the sound engineer has second guessed that you may want to listen to in a certain environment at a certain volume. We really need to know what happens when you push them, because we know the Motion Plus can hold its own against speakers like the Extreme 2. It goes loud for its size, but it's worth remembering, now I'm using loudness unit full scale. When we say loud, what does that really mean? It means they normally reduce the bass because it takes more power to drive the bass than the mids and the highs, and then use that power to drive the mids and highs because they can get it to go that much louder because it takes less power from the amp to do so. So if you measure a sheer dB power, yes, they go louder, but now we're talking about perceived volume. So it's not so susceptible to little trickeries like that when they're saying outdoor mode. Well, outdoor mode should actually boost bass and treble, but they don't. They reduce normally on the outdoor mode the bass and just give you the treble, and it's just a different type of listen. It goes louder, you may hear it more clearer if that's what you want, but I don't really consider those proper outdoor modes. However, maximum volume, let's see what happens. In this test, I did find the Motion Plus, almost no difference, 89% it's certainly in terms of bass, to 100%. And therefore, as I'm pushing it not quite as hard and you're hoping so less distortion at 89%, I am doing comparison bass mode and balance mode against both 89% and 100% on the Motion Plus.
When I was just a little baby girl, mama used to tell me some crazy things. She would tell me my destiny was to meet a man that's gonna marry me. She would tell me to sit up straight, don't gain no weight, gotta be thin. See, the plan is, honey, meet a man with money and you won't worry about a thing. She said, brush your hair, put your face on, meet a zoo, bitch your cake on, buy a mason, that's a crib. Pretty little life as a wife and kids. He bout the biz, he keep it proper. You baking goods like Betty Crocker. Grocery stocked up, laundry's on, dinner on the table when you make it home. Yeah, that's a dream. Raise your kids, cook and clean. Food in the cupboards, no need for rubbers. White picket fence with a house in the suburbs. No need for school, no need for friends, no need for work, cause you got a plan. Find a man, then raise your family. That's the only way for a girl to be happy. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't a project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. When I was just a little young and my mom thought I was bugging, cause I played with the wrong toys. No Barbie dolls, just sports balls. You could call me a tomboy. No dance classes, just hockey practice. Was born to win. My hair was a mess, I would never wear a dress, but I didn't really give a shit. I would go to class, passing notes. No flirting though, just cracking jokes. Smoking dope, but I kept my promise. Straight D's and I went to college. Bachelor's and a master's. Strong, independent, and I'm educated. Priorities backwards. Money that a man got, damn, I made it. I can date who I wanna date. Don't mistake for monogamy. The third base, let's go all the way. Drinking rosé like a holiday. No need to own cause I pay rent. You need me, I'm going on vacation. I party with no obligation. I'm single and I feel amazing. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life. You may say I ain't doing it right. You can do what you like, but I'm choosing my life, okay? And I refuse your advice. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I'm so free. Life is good. Baby C. Yeah. How we out, baby?
Maximum volume, Dockin in balance mode, which is default mode. Dockin in bass mode. So going by the LUFS, a loudness unit full scale, remembering it still represents a decibel in terms of the difference. So in terms of perceived loudness, 1.8 decibels louder than the Dockin in balance mode. The difference being it's robbing you of the highs and the mids. When you go to bass mode, you are getting more bass. You're getting a lot more bass, nearly 3 decibels more bass in bass mode than the balance mode. But balance is balanced. The peak's bigger, the max is bigger in bass mode. It's louder in bass mode, it's just a different signature sound. Motion Plus at 100%, Motion Plus 89%. You'll notice LUFS perceived sound exactly the same. We are hitting some sort of limit with my custom settings, 89%, 100%. So as you go up from 89% to 100%, not much is changing. The bass is almost exactly the same, minus 22.4, which is considerably down on the Dockin. Between the two Motion Pluses at 89 and 100%. The peak almost the same, the max almost the same. Almost no change. What you will hear is it's going to get slightly more shrill because you're not getting any more bass. Using all the normal measurements, peak, max, it's louder than the Dockin bass or the Dockin in balance mode. But using LUFS, the recognized perceived loudness you're going to hear, Dockin bass is louder. So it depends how you want to measure the loudness, which you're going to consider is louder and whatever. Problem is the Motion Plus with my custom settings on this deliberately bass heavy track cannot handle that bass. In reality, you'd want to dial back those settings, 80 Hertz, 150 Hertz. So I thought that was quite interesting. In terms of what's considered the same perceived loudness, actually, I was surprised that that makes the bass mode on the Dockin D Fine Mark II louder. However, all the other ways we normally measure the speaker using a sound pressure level meter, if you measure peak, if you measure the max, even if I had measured the old average dB, the Soundcore Motion Plus would have come out on top. So, and as I was saying before, it's also reducing bass in a way the Dockin isn't, so it's a different kind of listen at those volumes. So for me, although this goes, you may think louder, technically it's not louder, certainly not than the bass mode, but it's still a balanced listen at maximum volume on the Dockin, whereas it isn't such a pleasant listen anymore, it's just louder. And in terms of it may hurt your ears loudness, because of the high-pitched noise, bass is much easier on the ear, so that's why you may think it's going louder because it's hurting your ears a bit more, which may be what you want at the high end. It ain't going to do that on the Dockin. Now, what's going on with the Motion Plus? Because obviously I am pushing that bass, 6 dB at 80 Hertz. Dockin clearly didn't want me to do that. So obviously there's a level at which you're going to either want to dial back or you're not going to want to go past on the Dockin. I wanted to see more what was going on. I had a look at the frequency responses for that. So looking at the frequency responses, you can see by the time you hit 73%, that's about as bass heavy as it's going to get. By the time you hit 80%, there's almost nothing in it. There's no change. 80%, 83%, 86%, 89%. The bass is not changing. A little bit more by the time you hit 96% and 100%. So with my EQ settings, 80% is the hard limit, basically. If you want to reduce your distortion, start bringing the bass settings down from 80%. Upper bass holding up better than lower bass. So that 80 Hertz slider is your key, I think, to reduce distortion. 80% and above, you can probably bring it right down to 0 dB, which means no EQ at 80 Hertz. So I think I put enough into this video to explain the differences, why, in my opinion, you can't say, well, the Motion Plus is a better speaker or the Dockin's a better speaker. They're not. They're just different. Given the price level of the Motion Plus, it's still amazing value. It's going to, for a long time, stand up as a classic because, it does redefine what we expect at what sometimes you can get like 60 quid. Incredible. Although now, if you want the coloured versions, £110. However, it's still a lot cheaper than the Dockin, but they're very different listening. I find this is a more mature, enjoyable. It's more mature. I'm not saying more enjoyable, but it's a different. I personally like that quality, warm, lower mids. If that's not a big deal to you, then that's going to be your speaker. Personally, I wouldn't want to be without either of these speakers. So I'm comparing them, giving you the differences, which I hope has come out over this video. And I'm not going to say one is better than the other. Clearly, this is better value than the Dockin, and maybe it's going to come down in price as it's still relatively new. But I would say, if you only had one of these, then I guess still it's got to be the Motion Plus, in terms of you don't mind those trade-offs at top volume. It's not going to be, you're not going to get that bass heavy sound that you can get at lower volumes, because of the upper bass on that really hides what you're missing on the lower bass. And of course you're getting detailed sparkly highs. You're never going to get that on the Dockin. I should actually say, I had two Dockins. My first one didn't charge properly. They sent me a second one. I tested both of the frequency responses on both of those speakers. They were different. The sound signature is basically the same to the ear, but there was an extreme 6 kilohertz peak on my first one, which did help with some of the clarity that the Dockin overall is missing. And also think, on looking back on my frequency response test, slightly deeper in the bass. This is on the charts says it's a smoother, doesn't have that 6 kilohertz boost that the other one had, and doesn't go quite as deep. Now, I wouldn't say, from memory, listening by ear when I had both speakers, it was that noticeable, other than it did seem a little bit clearer thinking back on that first one. Whether that's my mind playing tricks or not, I don't know. However, I would say there does seem, on my 2 samples, there was some variability. And that's something to take in mind, that you may or may not get one that sounds a bit clearer than the one you heard in my testing on this video. Hope you got something out of my video, and I thank you for watching.
UK